Hello students, I am Mrs. Meenakshi Godbole from Ferguson College, Pune. In this lecture series, I am talking with you about operating system. Operating system is a topic from the syllabus of Vocational Computer Science paper 1. In the last lecture, we have seen the introduction to operating systems and we started with one of the components of operating system, that is information management system. In today's lecture, I shall continue with the information management system and then we'll start with the process management system, the next module of operating system. So let's start. Students, we have seen that information management system module comprises of two main things, that is file system and device drivers. In the last lecture, we have taken some information about file system. Now let us see various file operations. For each file created by OS, the operating system maintains a directory entry called volume table of contents. It contains information regarding file like file name, file extension, size of file, type of file, date created, date modified, etc. Now there are certain operations which are regularly done on files. Let's see some of them. First operation is create a file. For this operation, it checks for the availability of the space. Then, if sufficient space is available, it is given to file and it makes a new entry, file entry to the directory. Next operation is write to file. Write command contains name of the file. It is searched in the directory and data is returned to it. Then, reading a file. Read command contains again name of file. The directory entry for the file and its starting address is searched by OS and data is read further. Next operation is rewind a file. Rewind a file. The directory entry is searched for an appropriate file entry and file pointer is reset to the beginning of the file. Delete a file. Directory entry is searched for the file. If the file is found, memory allocated to it is released and thus file is deleted. OS deletes the entry of the file from the directory and updates the list of the free memory locations also. Now the next concept is device driver or DD. Students, in computing, a device driver, and it is commonly referred to as a driver. It is a computer program that enables one or more hardware devices to communicate with the computer's operating system. A driver provides a software interface to hardware devices. That is, it actually instructs the controllers of the devices to perform I/O-like operations expected by OS. Means students just understand that operating system acts as an interface between user and hardware, and this device driver, or only called as driver, it acts as a software interface between operating system and various devices. As every device functions differently, each device requires different driver as per its functionality. Students, you must have heard that if we want to attach any printer to our system, then we have to install a driver of that printer. If the printer company or printer changes, we have to install again some different driver for that particular printer. So this is the device driver, which is nothing but a computer program, acts as a software interface between the particular hardware and the operating system. Now let us see the concept of terminal I/O. A terminal or visual display unit, commonly known as VDU, is a very common I/O medium. Terminal hardware is broadly divided into two parts. Keyboard, which is used as an input device. Very commonly we use a keyboard as an input device. And video screen or monitor, it is used as a standard output device or output medium. Nowadays, mouse, light pen, touch screen, scanners, etc. There are many devices which are used as input or output devices. Now there are two types of terminals. First is dumb terminal. Dumb terminal has very limited memory. It has processor on which very basic or very small programs or simple softwares can be run. Mainly, it is responsible for the basic input and output of data. It is called as dumb because it doesn't process input data but only inputs it. Next type of terminal is the intelligent terminal. Intelligent terminal has more powerful hardware and software. More amount of memory is there in intelligent terminal. It not only accepts the data, but it also can carry out some processing like validations on the input data. It is called as intelligent terminal because it processes the data. Now let us see the next concept, video RAM, and it is used in the how it is used in the terminal hardware. For this, we shall consider only memory mapped, character oriented alphanumeric terminal. Means what? We are going to consider only a character oriented, means the monitor which can only display the characters and not the graphics, and also which is not colored, that is it displays only monochrome or single color characters. Now remember that terminal hardware itself has some memory, that is RAM. Every terminal hardware has some memory, means keyboard has its own small memory or monitor has its own memory, that is video RAM. So terminal hardware itself always has some memory. Anytime all the characters in the video RAM are displayed on the screen at a time by video controller using display electronics. Typical alphanumeric screen can display 80 characters per line and such 25 lines are there. So in all 80 into 25, that is 2000 characters can be displayed on a alphanumeric screen. In video RAM of such screen, for every character there is 1 data byte which contains ASCII or EBCD code for that character. That means 2000 data bytes are there. For every data byte, there is 1 attribute byte. Attribute byte tells the video controller how that character is to be displayed. Means it should be displayed in bold or it is underlined or blinking, etc. So, for 2000 character bytes, there are 2000 attribute bytes. You can see in the diagram, this is just a diagrammatic representation of video RAM of character-oriented alphanumeric screen. Attribute byte 0, data byte 0. Attribute byte 1, data byte 1. And so on, attribute byte 1999 and data byte 1999. So total 2000 attribute bytes are there and 2000 data bytes are there. Now this terminal is called as memory mapped. Why it is so? Video RAM is treated as a part of the main memory. So ordinary load and store instructions are sufficient and no special instructions are required for reading or writing the data in video RAM. This simplifies the things, but then it reduces the main memory locations available for the other purposes. Students, whenever data entry operation is done from the keyboard, you know that data entry is done for some program, and as we type the keys from the keyboard, they are displayed on the monitor also, and they are given to the program. Whatever data we enter, that is given to the program. Now in these operations, multiple memory locations are involved. Which are they? First is very small memory within the keyboard itself. Then the video RAM. Then the OS buffers. And lastly, fourth memory involved is the I/O area in the memory, that is in the RAM, given to the application program. So you may be asked in the examination which all memory locations are involved in data entry operation from the keyboard. So remember these 4 memories. Students, that was all about the information management system. I tried to cover important points related to information management module. Now let us start with the process management module, next important component of operating system. We have seen this in the last lecture, but just fastly we'll revise. System calls or services under process management. Which all services are provided by process management? Read a process, block a process, resume a process, terminate a process, suspend a process, delay a process, change priority of a process, and generate a process. So process related all the services are handled by process management system. Basically, what is process? A process is defined as a program under execution. It demands for CPU, that is microprocessor's time, and other resources. Program is a set of instructions which may reside on the disk. Maybe it is compiled and tested also. But then it doesn't compete for the CPU time unless it is executed. Students, recall what happens when you write a C++ program and save it on the disk. Till you save it on the disk and don't run that program, it doesn't require microprocessor's attention or memory locations. When you run it, then only it requires the processor's attention and memories and other resources. When the program is to be executed, it is first loaded in the main memory and then CPU starts executing its instructions. Now the program becomes a process. Thus, process competes for CPU time as well as other resources like memory and I/O devices. Process management plays an important role in multiprogramming as well as multiprocessor operating systems. What are multiprogramming operating systems? In multiprogramming operating system, there is one processor and multiple programs can be run simultaneously on it. For this, more than one programs can be loaded in the memory. While executing, if I/O operation comes in process, it is taken care by I/O devices and CPU starts executing next process present in the memory. This continues and CPU doesn't remain idle. The concept of degree of multiprogramming. This is very important and this definition can be asked in your examination. What is degree of multiprogramming? In multiprogramming operating systems, the number of processes running simultaneously and competing for CPU is known as degree of multiprogramming. Students, remember this definition of degree of multiprogramming. Now, next important concept regarding the process management is the context switching. In multiprogramming operating systems, multiple processes run at the same time and so are available in the main memory. We have already talked. CPU can process one process at a time. So, when process 1 waits for an I/O, CPU starts processing process 2 available in the main memory and so on. Later, when process 1 finishes its I/O, CPU again gives its attention to process 1 and continues its execution further. Thus, CPU changes or switches the context or its area of attention from one process to another, and this is known as context switching. There would be some time lost in turning attention from process 1 to process 2, and this time is called as context switching time. You can see in the diagram that initially process 1 is running. If some I/O operation comes in process 1, CPU starts running process 2. If some I/O operation is there in process 2, CPU pays its attention to process 3 and starts running process 3. Suppose in process 3 also some I/O operation comes, then you can see that all the three processes, process 1, 2 and 3 are now performing I/O operations and CPU has nothing to do. So it may happen that the time goes idle. Meantime, process 1 finishes its I/O and then CPU again starts running process 1. This happens in context switching. When CPU switches from one process to another, the contents and the status of registers used by an old process and data and the working area of it are stored in memory in register save area by OS. This frees the registers for next process and also it is useful for CPU to continue the process execution later on. Next important concept is process states. In order to manage switching between processes, the operating system defines three basic process states: running state, ready state, and blocked state. Running state. There is only one process which is executed by CPU at any given moment. The process which is currently getting executed by CPU is called as running process or process in running state. Students, this is in the case of single processor multi-programming operating systems. Because there is a single processor working, there can be only one process which can be in the running state at a time. But in multiprocessor systems with multiple CPUs, there are many running processes at a given moment, and the operating system keeps track of all of them. Next state is the ready state. The process which is not waiting for an external event like I/O but not running also is said to be in ready state. CPU can start execution of process in ready state anytime. Process in ready state may be a new process, or the process which was being executed was halted for an I/O and now has completed its I/O. That process also goes in the ready state. Third process state is the blocked state. When a process is waiting for an external event such as an I/O operation, the process is said to be in blocked state. Students, this I/O operation can be anything. Means input can be data entry from the keyboard, or it can be reading from the disk also. Similarly, output can be displaying on the monitor, or it can be printing on the printer, or writing the data to the disk also. So when a process is waiting for external events such as an I/O, the process is said to be in blocked state. CPU cannot start execution of a process in blocked state, though it happens to be free. Remember that the major difference between blocked and ready state process is that blocked process cannot be directly scheduled even if CPU is free, whereas ready process can be scheduled at any time if the CPU is free. This is the diagrammatic representation of the states. New process comes in and it is in the ready state. Then process is allocated to CPU. CPU starts executing the process and it is said to be in running state. While running, if some I/O operation comes in the process, it starts performing I/O operation and it goes in the blocked state. After completing the I/O operation, again the process is sent to the ready state. Then CPU can start it running anytime. Next concept is the time slice. Every process is generally given a certain time to run, and this time is known as time slice. This is done so that a process, especially CPU bound process, does not use the CPU indefinitely. When a time slice for a process is over, it is put in the ready state again. And again when its turn comes, process runs for the given time slice. This continues till the process is terminated. Students, you have to remember this concept of time slice. A question can be asked about time slice. That explain what is time slice or what is time slice, etc. Process scheduling. In multi-user or multi-programming operating systems, multiple processes compete for CPU and other resources. OS has to keep the track of all the processes and has to dispatch them for processing one after another. This is known as process scheduling. Now, for scheduling the processes, set of objectives is decided by OS designers. Which are they? 6 objectives are there: fairness, good throughput, good CPU utilization, low turnaround time, low waiting time, and good response time. Let us see them one by one. First is fairness. Fairness refers to being fair to every user or process in terms of CPU time that it gets. To achieve this, time slice method is used. Good throughput. Throughput refers to the total productive work done altogether. Throughput will be good if total completed processes are more. So there should be always a good throughput. Then good CPU utilization. CPU utilization is the fraction of the time that the CPU is busy. It may be busy executing either the user processes or OS instructions. Students, recall that operating system is nothing but a set of system programs. So if operating system works, means its instructions get executed. And who executes it? Nothing but No one but CPU. So CPU is either busy in executing user processes, that is our programs, or maybe the operating system instructions. Always CPU utilization should be good. That means CPU should not remain idle. Next important point is low turnaround time. Turnaround time is the elapsed time between time a program or a job is submitted and the time when it is completed. So it should be low. Next term is low waiting time. Waiting time is the time a job spends waiting in the queue of the newly admitted processes for the operating system to allocate resources to it. Waiting time is included in turnaround time. Next objective is good response time. It is the time taken to respond with an answer or result to a question or an event. It depends on the degree of multiprogramming, the efficiency of the hardware, along with the operating system and the policy of the operating system to allocate the resources. If the system is multi-user or time-sharing system, the response time is known as terminal response time. And in case of real-time systems, it is known as event response time. Response time is a very important factor in real-time systems. Event response time should be very, very less. Students, it is not possible to achieve all the objectives at a time as many of them are conflicting. Means what? For example, if time slice is kept small, then fairness increases. But throughput decreases as a lot of time is spent in context switching and less programs will be completed. So throughput decreases. So it is not possible to achieve all the objectives at the same time. Next concept is the priority of process. The concept of arranging ready processes in a queue using some policy so that they can be dispatched one after another for execution is known as priority. As many processes compete for the same available resources like CPU and memory, concept of priority is very useful and important. An important and urgent process have higher priority and get chance to execute first. Students, you have to remember what is priority. It can be asked in the examination. Now there are basically three types of priorities. First is internal or local priority, then external or global priority, and third is purchased priority. Let us see them one by one. Internal or local priority. It is set by operating system by using various scheduling algorithms. Generally, the calculations are based on the current state of the process. For example, shortest job first or SJF algorithm. In this algorithm, each user while firing a process can be forced to specify the expected time to complete the process. Based on this, the operating system can set an internal priority. Here, the shortest job gets the highest priority. Means what? The program which requires less time to complete will get the highest priority and it is executed first. Now this has two advantages. Shorter jobs are finished faster and the number of processes competing for the CPU will be decreased. And obviously throughput increases as the number of jobs, total number of jobs completed are more, and that is why throughput increases. But this scheme has one disadvantage also. If a stream of small job keeps on coming in, a large job may have to wait for indefinite time. The internal priority can also be based on other factors, such as expected remaining time to complete. It is a variation of SJF. Students, SJF is just one example of such algorithm. There could be many such algorithms which can be used to set the internal priority. Next is the external or global priority. An external priority is specified by the user externally, generally at the time of initiating the process. If the user does not specify any external priority at all, the operating system assumes a certain priority called as default priority. Many a times, most of the processes run at the same default priority, but when an urgent job needs to be done, the system manager permits that process to be created with higher priority. Third type is the purchased priority. In data centers where user is paying for the server time used, user has to pay also according to the priority of the process. Means higher priority processes are charged at higher rates, and that is why it is called as purchased priority. This prevents users from demanding all the processes to be executed at highest priority. OS keeps track of the time used by process and the priority at which it was executed for accounting purpose. Next concept is the scheduling philosophies. There are two philosophies for scheduling. First is non-preemptive. Running process retains the control over CPU and all the allocated resources till it gives them up on its own. This happens in non-preemptive. Even if higher priority process enters the system, the running process cannot be forced to give up the control. In this case, throughput increases, but it is not suitable for the real-time systems, as if some urgent process comes in, CPU firstly completes the process which it is executing, and then only higher priority process will get an attention. So this is not suitable for real-time systems. Second is the preemptive philosophy. It allows higher priority process to take over even if time slice of running process is not over. In this case, context switching increases, but throughput decreases. It is best suited for real-time systems where high priority systems require immediate attention. Yes, students, in today's lecture, we covered two major concepts of operating system, that is information management and process management. Under information management, we saw different file systems and video RAM. Then under process management, we saw the concept of process, context switching. Then we saw the concept of priority, what is time slice. Then what are different types of priorities, internal priority, external priority, and purchase priority. Now in the next lecture, I shall start with the third important module of operating system, that is memory management module. Thank you.